fellow travelers, welcome on in to the 131st level of the RPG Cave. That's palindrome, folks, by the way. I am one of your hosts, the level 199 Dark Lord, Ryan Turford, and I am joined for the first time on the show by the level 10 Koala Beastmaster. Fulya is here as well. Welcome on in, Fulya.
Hello, thank you for having me. This is so weird being on this side of the cave.
I mean, well, it's one of those things where you're usually hanging out, Monday nights in the chat. But yeah, it's the first time we really had you on the show because, as folks, might not know about you, you are newer to the RPG world, which is why, you're only level 10. We're gonna try and level you up a little bit. So like maybe by the end of the show, we get you to at least level 99 so you can keep up with some of the enemies in this dungeon.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And don't get pummeled. And also, that's the first time, by the way, I've used the Beastmaster class for anyone coming in because, I think it fits the koala personality is like your race being koala. So you're commanding the beast. You're commanding the other koalas to go into battle for you. Just like the hit movie, The Beastmaster from the 1980s, where the dude sees through the eagle's eyes and he has like a random, panther that just follows him around. It's a weird movie. But anyways, we should probably get into this. So let's clear the dungeon of these pesky mobs so we can get to the raid boss as quickly as possible. So folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of amazing ways you can do that. Number one, if you're watching the live stream right now over at youtube.com/carpoolgaming, or if you're watching the video on demand later, don't forget to lightly tap that subscribe button, smash kick that subscribe button, and let us know in the comments below how your RPG journey began and what RPGs would you recommend to someone who is brand new to the RPG world. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. And rate us if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, if you want one big podcast feed with the entire Carpool Gaming cinematic universe on it, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming, just like Smokin Joe did over at that platinum tier, of course, the official tier of the PlayStation Drive. Head on over there to that platinum tier. Also, fun fact, his name is Smokin Joe, but I think that on one of the shows on the Nintendo Drive, they referred to him as Smokin Yo, and then he commented in the Discord, he's like, yeah, I like Smokin Yo. So yeah. I guess we're just going with it now. So, there we go. And last but not least, of course, we have a website, carpoolgaming.com, where all of our merch lives, including an RPG Cave t-shirt or any of the other merch for all the other shows is over there as well. Without further ado, it is time to read from the sacred text. Oh, look, you get to do this. Is how I know you're a fan of the show. You know the motion. You know what you're supposed to do when I say read from the sacred text. I mean, sometimes Garrett just forgets to.
I mean, we could also go this way too.
Oh, you could, but you know what? That would be the most logical way to do that. That's not what we do on this show.
No, okay.
Please. I mean, this is a carpool gaming piece of content, Fulya. That's
yes,
just
this is true.
This is just not how we do things here. So what we thought would be doing something fun. Number one, of course, I should address the elephant in the room. Garrett's away this week. He'll be back next week to of course, nerd out about some cool RPGs. But Fulya, we wanted, since you are kind of newer to the team, but also newer to RPGs, we wanted to, try and see, number one, how you got into your recent journey of role-playing games, because your journey has just started. Even though people are already calling you the RPG Queen already.
I don't know
a certain Nagachaka fellow over here, or this other fellow named Ron. I think we may know them from somewhere. Even though they refer to you as the RPG Queen, I mean, you're just getting started here. So I want to know kind of how you got into it, but then also we'll explore the idea of like what we can do here to maybe get you more into role-playing games, to make you more of one of us, one of us filthy RPG people. But Fulya, I know you've got things prepared, so I want to know from you, like, how your RPG journey started. Like, how long ago was this? When did this start? We need all the deets.
Okay, so I'm primarily a platformer puzzle gamer than I am anything else. Only in the, I'm going to say from the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era is when I kind of, and I didn't even realize I was dabbling in the RPG world. My earliest memory of RPGs is none other than this classic, which is Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 Remix.
That's not the full title, Fulya. Please read the full title.
What is the full?
Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Final Chapter Remix.
Well, this one's only the 1.5 remix.
Oh,
version.
I didn't know that they sold them separately. I only knew
Yes.
that they sold them on PS3 in the package, the full package where you got both.
So I ended up getting 1.5 remix, but I also did get 2.5 remix separately, but I haven't touched that one. This is the only one I've played. But I think I only got as far as, I think, like the Tarzan area. And that's as far as I can remember playing. Okay. So that's kind of like where I started. I didn't even know that it was an RPG, to be honest. I thought it was just an open world platforming game.
Okay. So real quick then, what was the thing that got you into Kingdom Hearts? Do you remember? Was it just the Disney aspect? Was it the cute characters? What was it about Kingdom Hearts specifically?
I think it might have been the Disney aspect of it all. Just being able to wander around the world of Disney and the different movies and coming across the different characters and all that sort of stuff. So that's probably what really got me interested in it mostly.
Yeah. It makes sense looking at your background, because for audio listeners, Fulya has a bunch of stuff in her background, and there's a bunch of Disney stuff back there.
Yes,
so
yes.
It makes sense. But also, we've officially made history, Fulya. You are the first person to come on the show that actually likes Kingdom Hearts. So, congratulations. You are the first. Finally, 131 episodes in, we finally made it happen, folks. Someone who likes Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. Look, it was just mostly because of the fact that it had a lot of Disney aspects to it. So that was my go-to when I found the game. But it was still a lot of fun. I really do want to sort of go back into it and play as much more of it as I can, because I did really enjoy it. But going into like sort of during that time as well, I got my Xbox 360, and that was my first ever Xbox, to be honest. And a friend of mine, when I was buying the Xbox, recommended that I buy another game, and that game is Fable 3.
Oh, that is technically an RPG. It is more of an action RPG, kind of like Kingdom Hearts is. They're kind of in the same bucket of that, as one might say.
Yeah, I feel like I played quite a bit of Fable 3. I was doing a lot of exploring. I was buying up all of the houses so that I can rent them out, and just going around and I was doing fetch quests. Yeah. I was enjoying that. But I think I enjoyed the exploration of the world mostly.
Okay. So then I have a question then. So you mean to tell me, because I heard you say the phrase buying and then renting the houses. You didn't just do what I did and go slaughter the entire town and then just take the houses without having to purchase them because you murdered everyone, and then renting them out for obscene prices and just pure profit?
No, I did not do that.
That was honestly one of my favorite things to do in Fable, was just slaughter entire towns just so I would just have all the houses to myself, and then it didn't matter.
I couldn't do that, to be honest. I was too nice about it all. I was just like, no, I think I'm just gonna, if I can afford a house, we're gonna go with that. So that's what I ended up doing. Okay. I just ended up buying houses and then renting them out that way.
Now, Fulya, I think we need to collectively both shake our heads at Ron for a second here. Ron says from the chat, Fable 3 is cheek. Say it with me, and we're just gonna do this.
No,
sorry. I definitely think, Ron, it's the worst Fable game, but it's still not a bad game. It's a good game. It's just not as good as Fable 2, which is fine.
Well, I don't have anything to compare it to because it's the only Fable that I've played. So that's just how it goes. Fable 3 for me is my favorite Fable because I haven't played any others.
Default.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's one of the best words in the English language. Okay.
Exactly. Man, like I think that's kind of where my RPG sort of ended for a while, because it was just during the PS3, Xbox 360 phase that I was sort of just playing. It was mainly those two particular games. That was my RPG go-tos. The rest of my RPGing ended up happening mostly with the more current consoles. But there was one on the PC that I played. But I didn't play a lot of it. I played a little bit of it, and it was mostly because of the IP. And that's Marvel Heroes Omega.
Okay.
On the PC. I only played it for like maybe an hour and a half, but it was still a lot of fun. And that one is an MMORPG.
I was just about to say, so your journey started with 2 action RPGs and an MMO. That's pretty ambitious.
And I feel like that was like when I first sort of gotten into a little bit of the PC side of gaming. And because it was Marvel, and I really loved the Marvel sort of like the heroes and all that sort of stuff. So I thought I want to be a Marvel hero too. So
nice. I mean, it came out just at the perfect time when like the MCU was at its height. And,
yes,
like, I think it got a lot of people that, because I remember talking to a lot of people who don't even really play a lot of games, and they were playing Marvel heroes just because I think they wanted something Marvel to play, and it was like the newest thing out at the time. It was either that or play the god awful like Thor movie tie-in game, like Thor God of Thunder or something like that. Like that, those games were terrible.
Okay, no, I don't believe I've played those ones, to be honest. But so the Marvel Heroes Omega was, even though it was a short period of time for me to play, I didn't mind it. Like, it was still pretty good. But yeah, I'm not huge on the MMO side of things. I like the solo campaigns.
We'll find a way, Fulya. We'll find a way to ensnare you. More on that later in the show.
Yeah. But yeah, so they're kind of like my earliest foray into RPG. I do have a lot of other ones here that I can talk about and that I've sort of played, but I suppose that'll come as we go.
As we
episode.
go. But yes, because it sounds like you had a little bit of a start, but you didn't know you were playing role-playing games, and then it was really Marvel Heroes after that. But even then, like, Marvel Heroes wasn't really that long ago. Like, I'm guessing like you started playing that like 6 or 7 years ago, 8 years ago?
Probably,
kind of
yeah.
Yeah. But after that, like, it didn't really inspire you to go play a bunch of other MMOs or, other role-playing games or anything like that.
I mean, I didn't mind playing like online multiplayers and all that sort of stuff. Like, they're fun, but I think this is going to get a little spicy. I was out on a date with someone once. This was a long time ago, and they showed me League of Legends.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Was it League of Legends? No, it was Dota, actually. It was Dota 2.
Okay.
They showed me Dota 2. And I was like, okay, this looks interesting. I did dabble in it for like a little bit, but it just wasn't for me. I couldn't get into it really. So
yeah, I mean, you and me both. Like, my former roommate and best friend, like, she's obsessed with League of Legends, and when we were living together, it was just like nonstop. Like, that's what she was playing all the time. So I ended up being like, oh, I'm gonna dedicate a couple weeks playing League of Legends. Maybe I can get into it too. And it was just like, it got to the point where there was one game that will live in infamy where I went 0-27, meaning I got no kills and I got killed 27 times. I was just like, that's it. I'm done. This is not for me. And I'm retiring defeated. I can't do this anymore. So, and now that was the end of my journey with League of Legends, which makes a lot of sense. And Dota 2 is very similar to League of Legends. They're both very similar games. But, they have RPG elements though. So they're not technically role-playing games, but they're kind of like mini RPGs because you're leveling your character up, you're getting new equipment, you're getting new skills as you progress through the game. But it's just like by the time the game's over, all that stuff's wiped out. And you start over. So that's always interesting to hear. Like for me, my RPG journey, I've talked about it on the show before, but it's like it goes so far back to like, back in the 80s and 90s where the internet didn't exist and none of us knew what role-playing games even were because there was no real definition for it, or at least if there was, no one really talked about it. I mean, the guy at the video store who gave us Genghis Khan on the NES didn't know what RPGs were. He was just
Wow.
like, oh, this is an RPG. So we took it home and it was the worst game I'd ever played. Of course, Genghis Khan on the NES is a Romance of the Three Kingdoms style strategy game. And, it's nothing to do with RPGs. But since the guy at the video store told us that, we just assumed all RPGs were like that and they were bad. So, and it wasn't really until like Second Channel where I played Shining Force 2 for the first time, which of course it's on my shelf right there. I played that for the first time and that's what got me into RPGs. But it was just finding the right game and taking a chance on it for free $99, kind of like someone now might do the same kind of thing with a Game Pass game. I imagine like there's probably kids out there that have that kind of story where maybe they weren't into role-playing games, but they picked up like Dragon Quest 11 or Octopath Traveler just to try them out. And then they got into RPGs that way. Like, that's like kind of probably what I imagine the modern day retelling of that story kind of is. But I mean, back in our day, Fulya, like if you go into a video store and stuff like that, or read magazines, like we didn't really know what any of this stuff was back then.
A game was a game.
Yeah. I mean, likewise, the first actual role-playing game I played was Final Fantasy, the original on NES at my cousin's house a year before I played Genghis Khan. And I had no idea that it was even a role-playing game. Because I just hadn't seen a game like that before, and no one could tell me what the original Final Fantasy was. So I just assumed it was another game like everything else. Just called it a day. But that's kind of how I got into it. So it's interesting to hear kind of the conflicts in our journeys. And I know Garrett, he has an interesting story because like he played RPGs earlier with Pokemon, but then like you, he really like. It was almost like a phase for him, and it wasn't really until Skyrim on the Xbox 360 that kind of brought him back into role-playing games, which was the same era that you played your first role-playing games.
Yeah,
which is an interesting correlation. But you said you're playing a lot more RPGs now. Is that right, Fulya?
Yes. Well, as I was trying to collate my list of RPGs that I have played, I didn't realize how many of them that I have played. I played quite a few, actually. And it's more recently within the last, 4 years, I would say. In the last 4 years, it's when I sort of mostly got into playing a little bit more, especially on the Switch. And I've got a stack of games here that I didn't realize that I had. Like, I've got a stack.
I was going to say, it's time for you to start showing this off because like I didn't see the spine level, so I can't read any of those. So
no, I showed it that way for a reason.
I see what you did there.
Yes. But speaking of Pokemon, I think my first Pokemon game, which I don't have anymore because I traded it in. I know. The first Pokemon game I played was Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu.
Oh.
And I didn't mind the gameplay of it. I think what threw me off a little bit was the whole idea of using your Joy-Con motion to throw the Pokeball.
Yep.
And that kind of was a little, it was getting old, essentially.
Well, yeah, when you get 20 hours into the game, that you're like, just make it stop already. Just let me press a button to do this. Although clearly this was only because you didn't get the little Pokeball accessory for it that connects to your Switch that you then throw to then do the throwing motion.
See, that would have been cool. And I know friends who do own that controller, but for me, I don't think I was able to afford getting the extra ball on top of the game. So I just got the game itself. But it was, it was a cute game. I did enjoy it for however many hours I played it. It wasn't very long, to be honest.
I mean, it could have been worse. You could have had to play it with the Resident Evil chainsaw controller, which is this controller here.
Oh,
it's literally a chainsaw with buttons on it. This was a special controller released when Resident Evil 4 came out on the GameCube, and it was something.
I feel like Matt would have been all over that.
In fact, there was the separate one because they did a different version of it, variation of it for Resident Evil 4 on the PlayStation 2 when it came to that console. And Matt, of course, chimes in saying, best way to play RE4, clearly.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think the first sort of RPG that I played on the Switch apart from Pokemon Let's Go, was this particular game, and it was from an anime that I love so much, Fairy Tail.
Let's go.
I really love the fact that they actually chopped in a whole segment of anime from the actual anime into a game, and then you get to play as those characters in that game throughout that story. And it really got me hooked into it so much. And this is also a turn-based RPG as well. Yep. So kind of like Pokemon, but just
I was gonna say I played it on PlayStation 4 myself because I also really like Fairy Tail. In fact, this yellow light here is a Lucy light that I've got up there. I actually like Fairy Tail a lot. So I actually really liked that game because it was made by the studio that made the Atelier games, which Garrett's talked about on the show before. Those are also turn-based role-playing games, but focus on alchemy. Like that's kind of their gimmick. And they're it's one of the most popular series out there. So it was cool to see them do something different. And, Fairy Tail, that game was awesome. In fact, I was kind of bummed that they, never did a sequel to it. Like never did like a second Fairy Tail to kind of, finish the rest of the story from the anime, but then also like just give us another game with those characters again, I think would have been super cool.
I agree. I did actually, funnily enough, play it right through to the end, which is very rare for me when it comes to games like this, where I don't normally finish them.
Yeah.
I'll get to a point and then I'll abandon it because I don't feel like playing it for a while. And then I'll try to pick it up again, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm lost. I've forgotten how to play this game.
Yeah, because I think that's the type of thing with RPGs where if you put them down for too long, they are very hard to go back to. Like that, you kind of have to stick with them a little bit. Otherwise, you're just gonna not finish them. I mean, I'm starting to run in that similar situation right now, Fulya, with Unicorn Overlord, where I'm on like the fourth or fifth last mission, and I just haven't gone back to the game yet. I don't know when I will at this point because I'm hooked on playing an old PS1 role-playing game instead. But I like that game a lot, but it's just it's just sometimes that just happens where you just step away from it and it's tough to kind of force yourself to go back to it a little bit. But, I also remember Fairy Tail being like a 20 to 30 hour game. Like it wasn't super long for an RPG, so it was definitely a manageable length. So it was probably a lot easier for you to not have to, take a break too long for it or anything.
No. And the fact that, if you are a fan of the anime already and you love the characters, it's easy to just sink that time into it because you're just going to enjoy being those characters in the game anyway.
Oh, for sure. For me, and I think I've given this recommendation before because we did like our favorite licensed games episode. And I think it's honestly one of the best licensed game role-playing games out there. Like if you like Fairy Tail, like that game's a slam dunk for me.
Yeah,
it's
easy.
It's honestly one of the best anime games I've ever played too. So it's definitely a good game worth checking out.
Yeah. Another game that I played, and this is more in the Mario side of things.
Mario.
My first Paper Mario was in fact Paper Mario Origami King.
Oh, the Origami King. Sorry, that's a Heavy Rain reference from the game Heavy Rain, where they're like, we gotta catch this gosh darn origami killer.
Yeah.
But anyway, continue talking about the Origami King. I will.
Yes. So this is technically my first Paper Mario game. I never played any other Paper Mario game before this. So it's on the Switch. And the pre-order actually came with origami that you could put together of the characters in origami style, which was kind of cool. But I just had a hard time trying to fold it in a way to make the characters look the way that they're supposed to. Even the instructions were hard for me.
I mean, Mario in the game makes it look easy, but putting origami together is not an easy thing.
No. Not to mention the fact that they're also printed so that you have to actually fold the specific way so that it actually looks the way it is. So
yeah, exactly. It's a whole thing.
I actually didn't mind the story of this game. I really enjoyed it. I will say, though, the battle system really annoyed me to no end. Like, it got to a point where it was getting very, very difficult. And it was more like a memory thing in terms of trying to get a pathway, especially during the boss battles. And yeah, I don't know. I wasn't a fan of the battle system.
Well, it's like more of a puzzle game than a role playing game.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Like but at the same time, I think like it's definitely the best recent Paper Mario game. Because like the couple that came out before it, like Color Splash on the Wii or Sticker Star on the DS, like those games were not great. But whereas Origami King wasn't that bad. Yes, it's had some the combat wasn't great, but it had some good things. I like the story in that game. I think it's got like a fun story and stuff like that. But definitely, I know Matt in the chat says, of course, play Thousand Year Door when it comes out. It's the GOAT of Paper Mario games. He's not wrong about that. It's definitely like the best one, and it's also like the most role playing game one that you'll play out there. Besides just original Paper Mario on the N64 online, which is also that.
Yeah, I never owned a 64, so I didn't have the opportunity to play that.
I only owned it, bought my 64 like a couple of years ago. So
yeah,
I hear you. Because I back then, like all my friends had the N64, so I was the one who bought a PlayStation back then. So I pivoted a little bit. So,
honestly, and this is going to sound so weird, there was a gap in my life where I didn't have particular consoles. So I went from the NES to the Wii.
Oh, okay.
That gap was never filled with anything else.
But somehow Anna Kournikovas Tennis on the PlayStation 1 fits into that time window somehow.
It does. But in terms of Nintendo consoles, I went from NES to Wii.
Well, no, that makes sense. Because you had other consoles. You had other games to play. You didn't need to play Nintendo stuff.
Yes, this is true.
I mean, to be fair, like during the Super Nintendo era and the Genesis, I had both, but like I was mostly playing the Genesis because that was the console that I preferred, because I am one of the weirdos that for some reason preferred Genesis over the Super Nintendo. And likewise, PS1 era I was mostly playing PC games or the PlayStation 1, and then PlayStation 2 era I was actually mostly playing Xbox, and then PS2 and then GameCube. So we're not so different when it comes to that. A little bit. I just at least still own the consoles, but didn't play. They were just more paperweights to me than you actually just doing the smart thing and just not bothering.
No. I heard you and Garrett talk about this particular game on the show, and you both have talked very highly of it. It is another Nintendo game, another Mario game, and that's Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Yes, that's a good game. Good game.
I haven't finished it, but I did enjoy what I did play of it. It is actually good fun. I didn't I feel like the rabbits can be a little annoying.
Well,
the ones that are against you.
That's kind of their shtick. Like they're trying to be the video game equivalent of Minions, okay?
Yeah. And there have been a lot of times where I would end up dying in certain areas because the rabbits were just too smart for me, I suppose. Yep.
Like they were annoying, but also really smart, which is a deadly combination.
Yeah. I would try so many different variations on which way I need to go to be able to hit them and get them out of the way. But every time I get down to like one of the bigger rabbits, it's always the harder ones to get rid of. And it just, especially those boss rabbits. Oh.
Yeah. No, that game is actually like, even though we always tell people that it's a good game that people should check out, it's definitely a hard game.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, especially when you compare it to other strategy role-playing games, like there are definitely a lot of more easier options out there if you're looking for that type of game, especially with the later levels, because they really ramp up a lot.
Yeah, they do. But I did enjoy my time with it, so I'm happy that I've at least played some of it.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know where to go from here. I think this is sort of within the last couple of years, this is where I started my RPG adventure really took off.
Like it was progressing. You were on, you got the map, you clicked the quest marker, and then you just started heading down the trail.
Exactly. I think the next RPG that I picked up, and it was one that I never played the original of, again on Nintendo, is Miitopia.
Okay. I remember people talking about Miitopia, but I never played it myself.
It's actually a lot of fun. And I feel like Miitopia, especially with its character designer, my gosh, like I streamed this game and I put in a lot of my viewers into this game and it just went chaotic and it was hilarious and I had so much fun with it, but I still haven't finished it.
Just add it to the pile. Add it to the pile of shame.
Oh my god. I know. This is the thing with me. I'll start games and I'll never finish it. Yes. Thank you, Antics. So Doof was a character that Antics created for me to add into the game. And it's essentially a Bidoof, like, mask. Course. He made a Bidoof mask for this character, and Doof was just, he reigned supreme in our streams.
Oh my god.
Of Miitopia.
he was the true hero we needed.
Yep, he was.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember like this was like a play off of the built-in games for the 3DS with the Miis. They kind of expanded it out because there was like a Mii role-playing game that you actually progressed through Street Pass, and I guess they just turned it into a full game where you just make the Miis yourself. And it also kind of reminds me of like Tomodachi Life in that way, because like Tomodachi Life was a 3DS game that I played a lot with my friends, where we just made our friends in there, and then it would just come up with random stuff that your friends would do, essentially like that, and then seeing kind of the funny scenarios that would pop up.
Yeah,
the best part about that.
And that's kind of what we did with Miitopia, and it was a hilarious time. And it does get to a point with some of the boss battles where it does get a little difficult. Mm-hmm. So you have to make sure that you grind and level up your characters in order to beat those bosses. Because I was pretty close to the end as well. I'm almost at the end of the story. It got to a point where I just could not beat this particular boss. So I haven't touched it in a while because of that.
Okay.
I didn't rage quit, but it was just more of a, I'm going to leave it aside for now.
So you gracefully quit. You didn't rage quit.
Gracefully quit.
Yeah. You just put it down. It's fine.
It's fine. You could just sit over here for a moment.
Yeah. Good God.
Yeah. Okay, so handheld wise, my first handheld was a 3DS, and I have the 3DS XL.
Okay.
And so I was given the opportunity to try out a Zelda game. And I got the opportunity to play Ocarina of Time on the 3DS.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I got stuck in like the first little area of Zelda of that game. And I borrowed it off a friend of mine. And yeah, I was like, you can have it back.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm good.
I got stuck in a dungeon and I was like, I can't get past this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here.
Yeah. I mean, it's an N64 game, and it is. I imagine like people picking it up for the first time. It's a little bit of an obtuse game, especially if you aren't paying attention to what the characters say are talking about, because like they'll usually be the characters. If you talk to everybody in the town, as an example, like they'll usually tell you what you're supposed to do, but like, if you're not paying attention to that, you go into things and you're just like, I have no idea what.
And that was my problem. My brain just gets very distracted.
No, that's something that it just happens with a lot of old games, especially role playing games in particular. Like, if they'll usually tell you in the game how to progress, but like, you have to pay attention to all that stuff. Like, that's something Garrett experiences a lot when I assign him an old game to play, and then he has to go through it. He just usually ends up using a guide when I tell him to, kind of thing.
Yeah. I can say that I have tried a lot of other games, but just it didn't really drive with me. So Ni no Kuni: Wrath of the White Witch was one. I tried playing a little bit of that. I did enjoy some of it, but I don't know, for some reason I couldn't get past a certain area, and then I just abandoned it.
Yeah. Was it because it didn't have the throwing mechanic from Let's Go Pikachu to collect your monsters?
Yeah, it was totally that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Ni no Kuni is actually it's really nice, sort of an anime style game,
it's a Studio Ghibli game.
It is. That's what I thought I would like, because I love Studio Ghibli, and I've even got tattoos to prove that. Yeah. just that one just did not click with me for some reason.
Aw,
No,
too bad.
I know. What else have I tried? I am Setsuna. I've tried a little bit of that. But again, I didn't pay attention to where I needed to go, and I couldn't figure out where I needed to go to find this particular person. And there was no way of remembering who the person was that I needed to get that information from. And so I couldn't.
Yeah. That game in particular, they were trying to emulate the old style of role-playing games, which meant a lot of talking to all the townsfolk. And if you didn't talk to them and remember what they said, you wouldn't know what you're doing.
No. So I did give it a bit of a chance. So I did play about 6 hours of it. But I just got stuck because I couldn't remember because I didn't pay attention. And then I moved on from it. Another Zelda game that I've tried is Wind Waker on the Wii U. And yeah, again, like Ocarina of Time, got stuck somewhere and I couldn't keep going. And that one frustrated me, actually.
It's only because you couldn't invert your control, right? Like that was the real reason?
No.
That's actually the reason why Sean and I haven't played that. Haven't really, gone. Or I should say, I played Wind Waker back in the day just to get through it, but I suffered through the fact that I couldn't invert my controls, and it made me very sad. And
I don't think I noticed the controls, to be honest.
The best part is, Fulya, in the Wii U version, when they re-released Wind Waker, they still didn't add the option to invert your controls. So we still don't have an option where you can play that game with inverted controls, and it makes me very sad.
Yeah.
Because it's probably my favorite 3D Zelda game. So, yeah, it's sad. Sadness is officially on the stack.
Yeah, sorry, that one got traded in. Because it was one of those ones where I went to EB Games, and because I'd never really played Zelda games before, so I asked the staff member there, it's like, what Zelda game can you recommend me? And they gave me this one. I'm like, okay. It just, didn't click. I just didn't really get into it. There are quite a few other games here that I have sort of tried. Persona 5. I know Ron's going to kick my butt for this. I've played about 13 hours of that game.
Well, you know what? That's a good solid try with Persona. Because at least at that point, I feel like you have a solid grasp of what that game actually is and how it works and stuff like that. And you can tell by that point if that game's really for you. If you were going to say, like, I played the first hour and I put it down, I was like, well, you're not far enough. You're not even out of the prologue at that point or the tutorial. No. So, like, it's hard to, figure it out if it's for you. But
no, I did put a good solid 13 hours into it. It wasn't because I didn't like it that I stopped playing it. I think I got a little intimidated by the length of the game.
Yeah.
And just
why only because it's only 100 hours?
Yeah. and the fact that you had to remember where you were going, even though you had a map. The map still wasn't really that helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all the signs were in Japanese, which of course just helps, right?
Well, here's the thing. That was before I started learning. I played this before I started learning Japanese. Right. Now I could go back into it and be like, oh yeah, I could read some of it.
Yeah.
But that's still it was more of I had to remember which way certain shops were or which station I had to go to which way to get home. And yeah, it just got a little much.
I mean, if it makes you feel better, at least you're playing normal Persona 3 or Persona 5 because Persona 5 Royal is 140 hours. So, just making you feel better about your life choices.
I did end up adding the Persona 5, was it Strikers, to my library when it was available on PlayStation Plus. Yeah.
That's like a spin-off game that happens after. That's almost like a pseudo sequel where like the story takes place after the main game. And it's more of an action RPG, but it's also more of a Musou, kind of like the Dynasty Warriors games. Like that's more what it's going for. Yeah. But it's fine. It's fine and fun. That's a game for me, like I found like got really repetitive, like after the first, 5 hours or so. And I was just like, I'm good. I don't need to see any more of this. And I like Persona 5 a lot. So yeah, it kind of bummed me out a little bit.
Yeah. There was a demo that I tried, and it was Octopath Traveler.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed Octopath Traveler. Like what is it, like the first 3 hours of the main game?
Yeah, I mean the demo. It's like basically it's the first 8 stories, like the chapter 1 for each of the 8 characters, essentially.
Yeah,
and you can take as long as you want with those, I guess. So yeah, 3 hours sounds about right.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed Octopath Traveler, like the demo, but I didn't go as far as going out my way and buying the game to actually play it all the way. Because I heard a lot of things about Octopath Traveler 2 that everybody really said there was a lot better compared to 1. And I have the second demo downloaded for me to actually check out eventually. Okay. I will play through at some point.
It's on the list.
Yeah,
I have something to work with here, at least. With,
yes.
Ways we get you into RPGs a little bit.
Yeah. I've played about maybe 5 to 10-ish hours of Sea of Stars.
Okay.
Which was really interesting. I really enjoyed the music in that game. That was actually really cool. I really liked the music.
I mean, you've played that game longer than me. I haven't played it at all. Because I missed out on it last year because there was a bunch of games that came out because it came out at the end of August of last year. And there was like 5 or 6 games that released on top of it. I was playing those games instead. And I was also waiting for Starfield, which was coming out like the Friday. Like State of Stars was out the Tuesday, and then Starfield was out on that Friday. So we were like, well, I don't want to get into this 30 to 40 hour RPG right before Starfield. Like, especially when of course I was doing the Xbox Drive with Sean. So
that's true.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah. So that is a game I kind of want to get back into. So Sea of Stars, and I know that Amanda sort of went through it and played it, and she loved it so much. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely on my backlog to finish, at least to go through and finish it off.
I was gonna say it's actually a favorite on the Carpool Gaming staff because Amanda, Seth, Garrett, they all played it, and I think like Garrett and Seth had a review discussion they did while I was on vacation last year for Sea of Stars. So that is something we have on the channel as well.
Yeah. The one thing, and I know that you're gonna tell me that I shouldn't, but the one game that really, really got me in was Final Fantasy 16.
All right, commence eye rolling.
Yeah.
I can't.
I know this is technically not really an RPG.
Let's get into this question from Naga Chaka, who asks, question for the RPG queen herself. Please explain why Final Fantasy 16 is or is not an RPG. Also, besides Sid and Clive, what's the best thing about Final Fantasy 16?
Okay, so that first part, I can't say whether or not that it is or not, because I'm a noob at RPGs, so I can't go out of my way confidently saying that it is.
I don't know though, because you're starting to display that you've played a lot of role-playing games. You just haven't really finished a lot of them, so I feel like you could probably distinguish between the little things, but. Like I know, like we were contentious about it, like Garrett and I, because like we were kind of like I came to the conclusion that it is, but on like the borderline of role playing games. Like if the line here, if this is the line that says if a game is a role playing game or not, like if you cross over the line right here and you're not a role playing game, Final Fantasy 16 is literally right here where the line is. Like that's where I put it. Like if you looked it up in the dictionary and you wanted like the scale of what's an RPG versus not an RPG, it would be literally dead center in the middle.
Yeah, because the thing is, with Final Fantasy 16 also being my first ever Final Fantasy game, there are ways of like leveling up your character. There's a skill tree, but it's mostly sort of like an open world action adventure.
Yeah. That's how I would classify it.
Yeah, it's mostly an action adventure game with RPG elements.
Yeah, exactly. Like it kind of reminds me of the modern day Assassin's Creed games, because they're kind of like that as well, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Odyssey, where you're exploring an open world. You have like like some gear, like a gear system. You level your character. But other than that, that's where the RPG stuff stops. And it really is just an action adventure game where you go and explore the environments and you interact with the story. So
Yes.
very similar thing as to how way I would describe Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, and there are quite a lot of side quests as well, which is, I guess, an RPG element. But yeah, it's mostly action adventure.
Okay, fair enough. So then let's deal with the second question, the second part of Nagachaka's question. What is your favorite thing about the game besides Sid and Clive?
Honestly, side quests. The side quests were fun. Like just going out of my way and finding all the different, resources and helping people get through certain areas, beating up all these different monsters. They were actually quite fun to do. And I know there's still quite a few side quests that I haven't gotten to yet, and I really do want to go back and sort of finish them off. But the side quests were quite enjoyable for me. I did also really enjoy the what do they call them? The big boss battles.
Oh yeah, the icons.
The icons, yeah.
Yeah.
The icons were actually really cool. I really loved playing through those, even though they made me rage quite a bit. I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, I love like how over the top of they are, and I love the presentation on all of those the icon fights. Like I think they're some of the best parts about the games. And especially like the later ones in particular, which I don't want to spoil. Like some of those are just incredible. I love
They really are. But the one thing I will note is it's mostly a button mashing sort of a battle when it comes to the icon battles. Or it's okay, here comes a scene and press this button.
Yeah.
Like at
quick
a
time
particular
events,
time.
like Resident Evil 4.
So I really enjoyed those aspects of Final Fantasy 16. So they were really good.
Nice.
Another one, I think this was before Final Fantasy 16 actually, Hogwarts Legacy.
Yep, that was earlier last year, yeah.
Yeah, I need to go back into it. I kind of stopped playing this as I got to the Forbidden Forest. I'm not an arachnophobe, but those agromantulas creep me out so much, even in the movies. And the fact that I would be coming across them in the game itself, and I had I did come across them in the game as I was leading into the part of the story that did take me to the Forbidden Forest. I still couldn't get myself into the whole, okay, just go through it. Because I heard a lot of people saying, you're going to be fighting a lot of spiders. I'm like, no.
This is why more games need to be like Grounded, where there's like a spider filter. So like if you're afraid of spiders, there's a sliding toggle in Grounded where you can make the spiders look like cute, adorable blobs instead of spiders.
Well, a few months later, they brought out an update for Hogwarts Legacy that had an arachnophobia toggle as well.
Oh, well, there you go.
They have, but the thing is, it looks weirder in the arachnophobia version. It's, how, I don't know if you've seen the movies, Ryan?
I haven't seen any of the Harry Potter movies.
Okay, I was going to say, because one of the characters...
I know what a giant spider looks like, though.
No, I know. But Ron is one of the main characters, and he is an arachnophobe in the movie. And there's a class that they take, I think it was number 3, Prisoner of Azkaban, and there's a spell you use, which is called Ridiculous, and it essentially takes whatever you're afraid of and turns it into the most stupidest, most ridiculous thing.
Okay.
And that's essentially what it looks like. Like the arachnophobia filter is the Ron filter, the ridiculous of it. The spider is essentially this very colorful looking body with weird looking eyes and on rollerblades.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Yeah, that's not scary at all when it's coming to murder you. I'm sure the rollerblades are a nice touch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sort of going into the last few, I'll just sort of like round them off.
Sure.
I did pick up, I did try to play through some more Pokemon games.
Okay.
So Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, I played quite a bit of this. I think I got pretty close to the end. I think I almost finished it. I did like the art, like the cute little art style of it. It was really nice. Come
on, Fulya, you got to finish some of these games at some point.
I know. I'm terrible at finishing games. Legends of Arceus was my favorite of the Pokemon games. Yeah. I really love this one. I am very much looking forward to the next iteration of the Pokemon Legends game.
Oh, I should have you talk to Garrett about that sometimes because he's like a huge fan of that game too.
I really love this game. Again, I'm very close to the end and I haven't finished it, but I still need to finish it.
Nice.
And then the one that I kind of abandoned closer to the start, actually, is Pokemon Violet, especially because of all of the glitchiness and the performance. And God.
It was so hard to play through. Yeah. I get it. I get it.
And then the last couple of other RPGs that I will mention is I picked up and played through the whole thing of Super Mario RPG.
That's an RPG. It says it right in the title.
It's literally an RPG. It's in the title. I loved this so much. It was so cute. I love the art style of it all. And we even got, with our pre-orders, we got a cute little keychain.
Well, there you go. You got a little Geno keychain.
Yeah.
Over there. For the audio listeners. The audio listeners can't see it.
Yeah. So we got Geno, and I loved the game. It was so fun and hilarious, and the dialogue was just very entertaining for me, and I really enjoyed it. And then the last one, and this one's for the Xenobabes, I got Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition.
And here we
go. During the time that we were in this resurgence of playing Xenoblade games, and I just wanted to join in the fun. And I'm like, I'm going to start from one. Managed to find a pre-owned copy of it from another store. I've probably only played about 2 hours of it.
See? This was a mistake. This was a mistake. I mean, you've already got Ron in the chat saying, God, no.
No.
Yeah, that's okay. It's fine. I'm the one person on staff that doesn't really play the Xenoblade games. I get it.
It's fine. I got sort of like, I got into the hype of it all. I'm like, I feel like I'm missing out. So I've kind of there was a bit of FOMO happening, and then I was like, let me see if I can find a copy of a Xenoblade game. And then I found it, and then I tried playing like the first couple, and the battle system threw me off. Even though, like, I feel like I could probably get past that and I would probably enjoy it more if I just got over the battle thing. But it was throwing me off a little bit, and it wasn't clicking.
Yeah. It kind of actually circles back to what you were talking about with one of the first games you played, which is it feels like you're playing an MMO, but by yourself in a lot of ways. Because the MMO combat for most MMOs is kind of similar, where the characters do the auto attacks, and then you use your abilities off cooldown when they're appropriate to use them.
Yeah, like I feel like if I hold it, like I'm gonna hold on to it at some point. If I feel like I want to jump back into it and restart it and just see how I feel like later on, maybe I might push through it and play through it like a bit more of it. Mm-hmm. But as it stands, I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, this is what happens when you get swept up in trends, which is why like I'm very like hesitant to ever pick up a game like that. Like whenever there's like whenever we have something like that going on in the Discord, because like I don't love being in a similar situation to that where you pick it up, you barely play it, and it's like, well, it's just sitting on there on my shelf. So
yeah. And I'm glad that it was a pre-owned copy as well, because there was no way in hell I was going to buy it brand new or digitally at least, because I knew there was one mistake that I made when I bought something digitally and I didn't like it. It's not like I can return it.
Yep. No, Antics brings up a good point. Koala needs to play more demos of RPGs. That way she can try them without buying them.
Yeah, this is true.
That is actually a good theory. In fact, we talked about that on PlayStation Draft this week.
We did.
That's one of the best parts about demos, is determining if the game is for you and if you actually are going to want to play it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, I did start playing an RPG last night.
Oh.
Knowing that I was going to be here today.
In the cave.
I actually decided to start playing Trials of Mana.
Okay. Nice. on PlayStation or Switch?
On PlayStation, yes.
Okay, yeah, because I know it's on PS Plus. So
Yes.
Thoughts, feelings, concerns?
I've played almost 3 hours of it.
Okay.
I'm really enjoying the story. I like it.
All right, I have to ask you then. Who did you pick? Do you remember who you picked for your characters?
Okay. All right. Oh my gosh.
Even if you don't remember their names, if you can describe them, that works too.
The thief.
Okay.
Sorry?
Hawk is his name.
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye, yeah.
Yes, I picked Hawkeye. The little cute girl with the blonde hair, pigtails.
Oh God. I'm blanking on her name, but yeah, I always say "oh God" because she has like one of the most grating voices in.
Yeah, and she doesn't. She's like doesn't pronounce her R's and her L's, and they're W's.
To be fair, her voice, and if you're listening to the Japanese dub, isn't so bad. It's just the North American. I guess whatever voice actress they got for her, it's just like it's a lot. But she's a really good party member to have, so don't feel bad about that choice. And then, do you remember who your third was?
I haven't come across them yet.
Okay,
but
because you still picked them at the beginning. But
hold on a second. I'm gonna actually find the dang names because I do want to remember them. So it was Hawkeye.
Yeah.
It was Reese. Reese.
Oh, okay, Reese. Yeah, she's Amazon.
In the green outfit.
Yeah. I have a giant statue of her in the other room.
Yes.
Yeah, she's great.
And I think the young girl is
Charlotte.
Charlotte. That's the name. Yeah.
I remembered it as you were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're my three. So at the moment, I've just found Charlotte.
Yeah.
But I did come across Reese earlier, but there wasn't a like a dialogue thing for me to interact with her. So
yeah, you'll meet her later in the game. That's usually how that works. But that's cool. It's always interesting when I talk to people about that game, like who they pick for their characters, because I don't know if you knew this, but depending on the characters you select, the story changes in fairly large ways, and you will fight different enemies and have different combat encounters depending on who you select for your party that is actually geared kind of towards your party, but also has like story ties with the specific characters that you picked. So it's like super interesting, which is why like one of my favorite things about that game is the fact that it's got a lot of replay value, because once you finish it, you're like, oh, well, maybe I play through it as the other characters and see how the story changes and, you know, who the villains are and stuff like that. Like that's all different when you pick a different selection of characters.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Because to get the platinum, you have to beat the game 3 times. With like basically, we have to beat the game with all 6 characters essentially.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically, beat all 3 sets of bosses because there's 3 possible combinations essentially.
Ah, all right. Well, that's cool. Well, when I did find Charlotte, I played through a flashback, and it tells you that no matter what you pick during the flashback, you won't be able to bring it back into your current story, and you can't save during the flashback.
The interesting thing about the flashback is if you chose Charlotte to be the main character, that's how the game would have started would be with that flashback.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah, and each of the characters has their own like beginning area that explains their story.
Okay.
Because otherwise, if you don't do that, it will then explain it in a cutscene instead of playing the flashback.
I don't mind. I didn't mind playing the flashback. Actually, it was actually quite fun.
I was gonna say, the first time you go through it, like they're actually pretty cool. Because it's based off a Super Famicom game that just never came out in North America until like it got translated on the Switch in English for the first time before this collection came out. So it's super cool that you're playing it. And again, it's a fairly short game. You can beat in like 20 or 30 hours. So.
Well, we'll see. Like everybody already in chat is telling me to finish it.
Well, I mean, they just want you to finish a game at some point. It doesn't matter.
Pretty much. It's like it's not gonna happen.
You spend like the last 40 minutes telling us about games you haven't finished yet. So
that's a whole other episode in itself.
Oh, well, actually, this kind of brings me into Garrett Bland's question. Of course, Garrett's not on the show tonight, but he submitted a question right when we went live. So I'm so glad that I caught it in time. Garrett asks, Fulya needs to experience a quote unquote long, aka a regular sized role playing game. What over 100-hour role-playing game does Ryan recommend for Fulya to play? Of course, my vote goes to Persona 5, which we talked about earlier. But depending on her interests, I can see Witcher 3 or Baldur's Gate 3. I also recommend Steam World Quest as a good first card-based tactical role-playing game.
Interesting. I've never played a card-based game at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
Apart from Solitaire. That's all I play.
I mean, that Solitaire is a card-based game. It's not a card-based role-playing game, mind you. But,
No.
It's a game about cards. But, and Ron, you can just get out of here. Ron's mentioning you don't need to play Trials of Mana. I'm just like, no, please.
Wow.
Yeah. Garrett, I mean, as something we discovered here with Fulya talking about the games that she's played is that I don't want to give her any more games to play that are over 20 or 30 hours because she will never finish them at this point.
Pretty much.
Otherwise, I mean, Persona would be the one I would tell you to go back to if you wanted a 100-hour game. But I would actually probably strongly advise.
Yeah, see, my problem is I get distracted very easily, and I'll find other games that looked interesting and be like, oh, I want to try this one. And then it'll just keep cycling through, and I'll start a game and it won't finish. And then I'll start another game and it won't finish. Yeah. Right now, I have 8 games on the go.
That's so many.
I know.
So many. But what you've proven to me, though, throughout the course of this conversation, Fulya, is I think you are transitioning into becoming an RPG fan. I don't think you're all the way there yet. Because you haven't, I think you feel like you start these games, but you never finish them. And I feel like to be like an RPG fan, like to attain the fan status, you have to at least finish some of these games.
Yes.
Like, so I feel like with a little more commitment, maybe playing some of these games or maybe picking up some new role-playing games and making sure to play them, I think you might actually get there with being
I think so.
Yeah, being a role-playing game fan. Like at least like, do you have a preference as far as, turn-based games or action games? Or do you just like both?
I don't mind either way. I feel like I'm enjoying the action-based a little bit more than I am turn-based.
Okay.
But I'm happy to go either way, to be honest.
Yeah, because that kind of brings me back to your humble origins you talked about, where all 3 games you talked about, where you first started playing role playing games were all action role playing games. So I think you might be right, which is why I'm actually glad you're playing Trials, because I think it's probably way more up your alley and also closer to something like Final Fantasy 16, but not as combo-y as Final Fantasy 16 is, but a little more tactical, especially later in the game. So. Yeah.
I know definitely at some point, and this is in my little list of gaming achievements or goals, and I would like to at least play another Final Fantasy game at some point this year.
I can give you some recommendations for that. I mean, for starters, we talked about it on PlayStation Drive already, but I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think would be right up your alley. Especially if you like Final Fantasy 16, it's probably the Final Fantasy game that's closest to Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah. That's
also really good. Like it's got a good story, it's got good characters, music's great. It's got some, story elements that might not make sense to someone who didn't play the original, because it's one of those weird remakes that for some reason only really, really makes sense if you played the original game. Yeah. And Ron's just sighing in the chat when I tell you about this.
I was waiting for
it. I just feel like this is the correct advice, because I do think if you want to play a Final Fantasy game, that's probably the way to go. Otherwise, if you want to do turn-based, maybe playing either the Pixel remasters like Final Fantasy VI might be up your alley, or even maybe something like Final Fantasy X might actually be good. Like maybe you'd enjoy that as well. So those are kind of the Final Fantasy games I might recommend to you. In the future, but I do think you should finish Trials of Mana first before we have that conversation officially.
Yeah.
You got to commit to finishing some of these games first.
Some of these games.
I mean, especially because you've only got a month before Iodine Chronicles 100 Heroes is out.
Yes.
There's another role playing game that I know you want to play because of the other Iodine Chronicles game, Rising.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I still need to finish Rising, but I feel like I'm pretty close. I think I'm over the halfway mark.
I was just saying, because I think the last time you described it, you were definitely heading towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's exciting. Well, let's get some of these other questions we've got for you.
Okay.
We've got Awesome Dave 1337, who says, "What is the best role-playing game for slightly newer people for the genre, and why is it Final Fantasy VIII? The game has a great story, great characters, and a unique combat/progression system. Awesome Dave, I would never recommend Final Fantasy VIII to a new person. Ever. Even someone who's new to Final Fantasy, which is why I didn't recommend it when Fulya asked me what Final Fantasy games to play.
I also don't understand the concept of gun swords.
Look, it's a sword that you can also shoot. What's the problem?
I don't know. It just logically doesn't make sense.
I mean, we've also got gun swords in Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy 14. Those count.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, it's fine. If you stab someone and then you shoot the rifle bullet into them, it makes sense.
Well, it sort of makes the don't bring a knife to a gunfight sort of saying redundant because you bring both.
Exactly. It's like that scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where that dude's got his sword and he's flipping it around and Indy just shoots him with the gun and just walks away. It's just like that.
Yeah.
Good God. But yeah, like I think like for, as far as, RPGs for someone who's newer to the genre, first of all, I think we've kind of set you on the right path as far as, new RPGs. Like Trials of Mana is one I always recommend to people who are newer that are looking for action RPGs. I think it's always a solid pick. Just like Hogwarts Legacy, I think is actually probably a good one for newer players because it's got the Harry Potter IP. If you like Harry Potter, and I think it's fairly easy to get into. I remember like you were talking about it. It wasn't so much the gameplay that was bugging you; it was just the spiders. So
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah. So as long as you're okay with spiders, or now that you play it now with the spider filter thrown on, you're good. Like I think that's a good RPG for new people. But I also think like at some point maybe you want to try like another strategy role playing game. So maybe you want to try like a Fire Emblem game or something, or dip your toes into that. But maybe we get you down the road there. Yeah. But Garen and I did a whole episode talking about RPGs for beginners.
Yes.
Earlier this year actually we did like an update for that episode. So go check that out on the free feeds if you were newer. But next up, Savoy Prime, aka Ron, asks, when you gonna play Ys 8? Start your journey RPG off right with greatness. Also, what kind of RPGs do you think you prefer? So first
I don't even know what Ys is.
So Ys or Wise.
Wise is what I originally thought it was.
Yeah, if you want to pronounce it with the lettering, it's an action RPG. From Kemco. It's a fine game. It's a fun game. Or sorry, Falcom. Falcom made that game. I think it's fine. It's an okay role-playing game. Ron loves it because Ron kind of likes everything Falcom does, which is the company that makes it. Because they also make the Trails series that he's also obsessed with.
I honestly thought whenever he mentioned Falcom games, I thought he actually meant the games that were titled Falcom.
Yeah, I know.
I never knew that it was an actual developer.
That's just the name of the company, and they make a whole bunch of different games. Ron, of course, chimes in saying, okay, game, he needs Kevin in here. I mean, Kevin is probably the only defender out there for Falcom games as well. Again, I'm not saying they're bad. They're just not like, in the upper tier of games. But I also feel like Ys 8 isn't probably a good RPG for beginners. I think like you have to have a few more action RPGs under your belt before you should play Ys 8. Because Ys 8 is a fairly niche game and it has some mechanics that I just think are tougher for newer players.
Yeah.
But of course, I think you already answered the other question, what kind of RPGs you prefer? Which of course, either turn-based or action RPG, don't really care, but probably more action-based. So also KRPG, Qual RPG, I love this. Thanks. And then last question comes to us from CrocoKyle. Are there any RPG series that have been abandoned that you would love to see a new entry for? For me, it's the Mario and Luigi games. Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story are two of my favorite role-playing games of all time, and Sea of Stars really reawakened that itch for me. The writing and humor were so great, and the combat and button timing were really fun. Would love to see a new developer pick up where Alpha Dream left off, which of course is a team that no longer exists because they went bankrupt, he notes. So funny enough, Fulya, if you like the Paper Mario games, the Mario and Luigi games are actually a perfect segue for you to try also maybe in the future. Because essentially after Mario RPG came out on the Super Nintendo, the developer who made that, they weren't able to partner with Square Enix to do a new game. So what they did with the GBA came out is they were starting to work on a sequel to Mario RPG, but since Square wasn't involved, they had to change it to do something different. And they made just the Mario and Luigi games for the GBA, like Superstar Saga, which is like a turn-based role-playing game, and it plays exactly like Mario RPG does. So if you like that game, that might be another game maybe worth checking out because Superstar Saga is on the Switch Online. So it's actually there in
Okay.
the GBA section. It's actually pretty good, and it still
Cool.
holds up today. And then there's also a couple of really good ones in that series on the 3DS as well, like Bowser's Inside Story, as well as Paper Jam. I think it's pretty good too. So there's some good ones there.
Interesting.
But otherwise, Fulya, I don't know if you have any answers to this question about RPG series that have been abandoned. This is probably more of a question from me. But the one I always bring up, of course, is the Shining Force series. Of course, Shining Force 2 back there. I've got my box copy just sitting out there. I've been begging Sega to bring back the Shining Force series for years now. It was the series that got me into role-playing games in the first place. And, you know, they were like the Sega equivalent to the Fire Emblem games, but they were better than the Fire Emblem games. And so I love Shining Force a lot, and it made me really sad that they kind of abandoned it, or they turned them into really bad action RPGs, because they tried to do all kinds of weird stuff with the series to just see whatever would stick, and just nothing stuck. So that is one for me that is just like number one on my bucket list of role-playing series that I would want to come back. The other one is Parasite Eve, because I always, rave on the show about Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is the survival horror turn-based role-playing game series from the PlayStation 1 and the PSP. It just makes me sad that the third birthday, which is the last one in the series, is the last game we'll ever get, because that game was not very good. But there you go. Those are the abandoned series I would love to come back. So overall, Fulya, I feel pretty confident that I can award you 99 more levels. I will now classify you as the level 99 Koala Beastmaster whenever you're on the show again. And then you'll have to earn your advanced class by finishing more games.
I'm going to have to work on that, yes. I hopefully by the time I come back around, I will have finished Trials of Mana.
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe some other games. And of course, if you want more of us talking about these games, we're both on the PlayStation Drive. For folks that only listen to this podcast, we know there are some of you NPCs out there, non-podcast characters that do only listen to this show. So Fulya and I are both on the PlayStation Drive with Ron and Matt, and I'm sure we'll be talking about Trials of Mana and other games over there. So definitely make sure to check us out.
Most likely.
Over there. But otherwise, anything else you want to add before we wrap up the show tonight, Fulya?
Thank you so much for having me on the RPG Cave. I feel so welcomed, and I can't wait to pursue my adventures even further with RPGs. I really can't wait.
Pretty soon we're going to make you one of us. You're going to start nerding out about mechanics and, skill progression and stuff. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Exactly. But otherwise, where can people find you on the internet if they aren't following you already?
So you can jump over to foolishfuji.card.co. That's card with 2 R's. It'll have all of my social platforms, my content platforms, and everything else on there, including my podcast as well. And yeah, it's essentially Foolish Fuji wherever you look.
Excellent. Also, I want to add, because I never mentioned this before, but every time you say card.co, I think in my head of you doing like a pirate voice while saying that, because it's multiple R's together, like card.co. Card.co. As for me, you can find me on the old Twitter, aka X, at Ryan Turford. You can also find us on X at Carpool Gaming, right here, youtube.com/Carpool Gaming. Of course, podcast services around the globe. So, for Fulya, I'm Ryan. This has been the 131st level of the RPG Cave. Again, that's a palindrome. And we're out, everybody. Good night.
See ya!